I'm Eric. I turned 39 this spring, and I thought by now I'd have everything figured out. I had the career I wanted, managing logistics for a distribution firm outside Columbus. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. I married a woman named Hannah when I was 27. She was radiant back then. Funny, warm, the kind of presence that could light up a backyard barbecue just by laughing too loud. We used to stay up until 2 a.m., talking about nothing. We could barely keep our hands off each other. God, I miss that version of her. Or maybe I just missed the version of me she loved. The early years were golden. Everything felt new, electric. We had this rhythm, like we could read each other's thoughts. Every weekend felt like a new adventure, even if it was just a walk down to the diner for pancakes or painting a room together. Her laugh used to echo through the house. That was the sound of home. But life crept in. That's how it happens, I guess. You don't notice it at first. A few more hours at the office. She picks up yoga. You start streaming shows in separate rooms. We stopped having sex first. Then we stopped flirting. Then we stopped really talking. The worst part? There wasn't a big fight. No betrayal. Just silence. A slow erosion. I noticed she started spending more time on her phone. Always flipping it face down when I walked into the room. She'd sit on the couch, legs curled under her, smiling at something on the screen and not say a word. I'd ask what was funny. She'd just shrug. Just a meme, she'd say. No offer to show me. Her eyes stopped lingering on me. You don't realize how much you miss being looked at until it stops. She'd pull away slightly when I reached for her in bed. Tell me she was tired. And I believed her. That's the embarrassing part. I convinced myself it was stress, maybe perimenopause, maybe just a season. I bought vitamins. I booked us a couple's massage. But none of it touched the distance that had crept in. It was like living with a ghost. My wife was in the house, but the woman I loved was somewhere else entirely. One night, we were eating dinner, I made salmon, she barely touched it, and I asked if she wanted to go hiking that weekend. I thought maybe we could reconnect. She didn't even look up from her plate. Just said, flatly, "Why do you always need so much from me?" I sat there in stunned silence. It wasn't even the words. It was the tone. Like I was a burden. Like my wanting time with her was somehow annoying. I didn't say anything back. Just nodded. Took our plates to the sink. And as I rinsed the dishes, I felt something shift. Something small. But it was the first time I let myself wonder if we were actually okay. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Hannah was next to me, scrolling through her phone, the light casting a blue shadow across the sheets. I turned toward her and placed my hand lightly on her hip. She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough. Then she mumbled, "I'm tired," and turned away. I stared at the curve of her back for what felt like an hour. That one small recoil had more weight than 1,000 arguments. It wasn't rejection, exactly. It was indifference. Like my touch meant nothing. The next morning, I woke up before her and made breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, coffee just the way she liked it. I even squeezed the goddamn oranges myself. She came downstairs in her robe, glanced at the spread, and said, "Thanks," before picking at a pancake and scrolling through her phone. I tried to smile. Tried to act like this was normal. Like we were still normal. But I felt like a guest in my own kitchen. I started doing more. Planning little date nights. Booking a weekend getaway to Hocking Hills. She cancelled it last minute, said work was too stressful. I bought flowers. Left her notes. Cooked her favorite meals. Nothing changed. And every rejection was quiet. That was the worst part. No screaming matches, no slammed doors. Just that subtle emotional vacancy. Her eyes never met mine. Her laughter never came back. You begin to question everything. Was I ever enough? Was I too needy? Did I push too hard? Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe this is just what long-term relationships look like. But then I caught myself apologizing for everything. For wanting to hold her hand. For asking how her day was. For texting too much. I remember once, I asked her if she wanted to watch a movie together. She sighed like I had asked her to move furniture. I'm just not in the mood, she said. I nodded. Went back upstairs. Sat in our room, alone. I don't even remember what I did. I think I just stared out the window, waiting for night to come. That weekend, I talked to my friend Nate. We met for drinks at a bar we used to hit up back in our 20s. He asked how things were going. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just bitterness. She doesn't see me anymore, I said. Nate just stared at me for a beat. Then he said, maybe she sees someone else. I told him to go to hell. But even as I said it, something inside me cracked. Because a part of me had already thought it. I walked home that night under a bruised sky. The air felt heavy. I stood outside our house for a full minute before going in. The lights were off. She was asleep. Or pretending to be. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared into the dark. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. Just this hollow ache. Like I was losing something I hadn't realized was already gone. It took me 2 more weeks to say anything. 2 weeks of pretending things were fine. 2 weeks of washing dishes next to a woman who wouldn't touch me. Of sitting across from her at dinner, wondering if she even saw me anymore. It was a Sunday morning. She was drinking coffee, scrolling through her phone again. I had made the coffee, set the mug down beside her, and she hadn't said a word. Not even a thank you. Just scrolled. I sat down across from her. My hands were trembling a little, but I tried to hide it. I waited until she looked up. Do you still love me? She blinked, caught off guard. Then she set her phone down slowly. What kind of question is that? A real one, I said. She didn't answer right away. She stared at the steam rising from her cup, like the answer might be hidden in the swirl. I don't know, she said finally. And God, that stung more than a no. I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from saying something I'd regret. Are you seeing someone? Her eyes widened for a second. Then narrowed. That's not fair. It's a question, Hannah. Not an accusation. She looked away. No. I'm not seeing anyone. But she said it too fast. Too clean. Like she'd rehearsed it. And the worst part? I didn't believe her. Not because I had proof, but because I knew that look on her face. I knew the way she was holding herself, tight, like a kid trying to lie and not get caught. Okay, I said. That was all. Just okay. Because what else could I say? She got up, took her coffee, and walked upstairs. And I sat there, the kitchen clock ticking too loud, wondering if I had just spoken my marriage into its final chapter. I started noticing everything after that. The way she dressed up to go to the grocery store. The way she laughed at texts but never told me what they said. The way her phone was always on silent. I didn't want to be paranoid. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that this was just a rough patch. But every smile that wasn't meant for me felt like a betrayal. Every unanswered question felt like proof. I thought about checking her phone. I never did. Not because I was above it, but because I was scared of what I'd find. And that fear? That's when I knew we were in trouble. It was a Tuesday when Nate called. His voice was tight, careful. "Eric," he said. "You need to hear something. And I need you to promise you won't lose your shit." I stepped out of the office conference room and into the stairwell, phone pressed to my ear. "What is it?" He hesitated, which only made my stomach tighten. "My sister, Jamie, saw Hannah at that wine bar on 5th last night. She was with a guy. Definitely not a coworker vibe." "What do you mean?" "They were sitting close. Holding hands across the table. Laughing. He kissed her cheek. It wasn't subtle." I leaned against the cold concrete wall and said nothing. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, Nate continued. "But Jamie was certain. She even recognized the guy. Some personal trainer from her gym. His name's Mason." I said thanks. Hung up. And stood there for another 10 minutes, trying to swallow the nausea. I had asked her. Straight to her face. She lied. Looked me in the eyes and lied. Back home, I couldn't focus on anything. I stared at Hannah as she folded laundry on the bed, humming like the world hadn't shifted. It all made sense now. The coldness. The silence. The sudden effort in how she dressed. The way she'd shut me out completely. I felt like a fool. Not just for being lied to, but for clinging to a version of her that didn't exist anymore. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I needed space to feel it fully. The betrayal. The disappointment. The grief of losing someone who was still technically there. It wasn't just infidelity. It was contempt. She didn't even respect me enough to end it honestly. She just phased me out, like a software update. One day, I was the love of her life. The next, I was some relic she tolerated. And the worst part? She still slept in our bed. It happened on a Thursday. The kind of ordinary day that doesn't warn you it's about to cut you in half. She was folding laundry, standing near the bed. I was just watching her, noticing how little she looked at me anymore. And I asked quietly, "Do you still find me attractive?" She didn't answer right away. Just kept folding. Then she said, "I don't think about that stuff much anymore." I nodded. But something broke. "Just tell me the truth," I said. "Whatever it is. I can handle it." She put down the sweater in her hands. Turned toward me like she'd been waiting for permission. "I don't want to be touched," she said. "Not by you. Not lately. Not for a long time." There wasn't anger in her voice. Just detachment. Like she was describing a dull movie she'd stopped watching halfway through. That was the moment. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No smashing picture frames. Just a silence that cut cleaner than a blade. I stood up, walked to the closet, and took out my old duffel bag. She didn't stop me. Didn't ask where I was going. She just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. I packed quietly. A few shirts, jeans, my charger. I moved slow, deliberate. I wasn't running. I wasn't begging. Before I walked out, I looked at her one more time. "I would have done anything for you," I said. She didn't look up. Didn't respond. I drove to Nate's place. He opened the door, saw the bag, and just nodded. No questions. That night, I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't even crying. I was just emptied. It didn't feel like losing her. It felt like waking up from something I hadn't realized was a dream. I wasn't her partner anymore. I'd just been playing the role. And she? She stopped watching a long time ago. The first morning at Nate's place felt like surfacing from underwater. I woke to the faint scent of burnt coffee and his dog's toenails tapping against the hardwood floor. I hadn't cried. Not then. Not yet. I think part of me was still in shock, still halfway convinced I was just blowing off steam and would head back home in a day or two. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on his back porch with a blanket over my shoulders and watched the neighborhood slowly come to life. Kids on bikes. Sprinklers ticking. A woman jogging with earbuds in. Life going on, indifferent to the little implosion that had swallowed mine. Nate came out and handed me a mug. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. Just sat next to me, sipping his own coffee, both of us staring out at the world. Eventually he said, "You don't have to go back." I nodded. "I know." That night, Jamie, Nate's sister, came by. We hadn't really talked since college, but she was always sharp, always straightforward. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "You know she's been checked out for months, right?" she said. It wasn't just that one night. I didn't respond. She glanced at Nate, then back at me. "Mason, the guy from the wine bar, he's been around. They've been seen together. Jim. Lunch spots. He picks her up sometimes. She's not being discreet." I felt my stomach twist, but it wasn't the sharp stab I expected. It was dull. Almost confirming. I think the worst part was that I wasn't surprised. Somewhere deep in me, I had already accepted it. I just needed someone else to say it aloud so I wasn't the only one carrying the weight of suspicion. "She talk about me?" I asked. "To people?" Jamie hesitated, and that was answer enough. "What did she say?" "She said you were needy," she replied quietly. "That you didn't give her space. That you made her feel suffocated." I looked down at my hands. My thumbnail was raw from where I'd chewed it. I thought about every dinner I'd cooked. Every message I'd sent just to say I missed her. Every attempt to hold her hand. And all of it, every little act of love, had been reinterpreted as a burden. She didn't just fall out of love. She rewrote the story so that I was the villain. That night, I sat outside again. Same porch. Same silence. Only this time, I didn't feel hollow. I felt clarity. Not peace, not yet. But something like it. Like the beginning of it. Because the truth had settled. She left me long before I walked out. And maybe, in her mind, she needed a story that made her the victim. Maybe she needed to believe I drove her away. Maybe Mason was her answer to a question she couldn't face alone. But none of that was my responsibility. I had stayed. I had tried. And now, I was done trying. I stayed with Nate for 2 weeks. Long enough to stop checking my phone every 10 minutes. Long enough to stop hoping Hannah would reach out. She didn't. Not once. And that, in its own way, told me everything I needed to know. I went back to the house when I knew she'd be at work. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want closure. I just wanted my things. It was strange being in there again. The way the light spilled onto the hardwood floors. The faint smell of lavender from the candles she always lit. It looked like home, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I packed slowly. Deliberate. Taking only what I needed. I left our wedding photos in the drawer. Left the anniversary card I wrote her last year tucked in the nightstand, unopened. On the kitchen counter, there was a grocery list in her handwriting. Almond milk. Spinach. Dog food. Ordinary things. Like life was just moving forward. Like none of it mattered. I didn't leave a note. What would I even say? "You killed us," softly. No. She already knew. I rented a small apartment across town. Nothing special. 1 bedroom. No yard. But it was mine. The first night there, I slept on a mattress on the floor. The silence was deafening, but at least it was honest. People think heartbreak is loud, sobbing, yelling, punching walls. But it isn't. Not always. Sometimes it's just sitting in a dark room, realizing the person you loved doesn't love you back. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. And still, somehow, you survive it. Nate checked in daily. Jamie brought over plants to keep me from living like a troll. I appreciated it more than I let on. I started going on walks. Cooked for one. Got used to my own company. The ache didn't vanish, but it dulled. Became manageable. I don't hate Hannah. That surprises people. But hate takes energy, and I've spent enough of that already. She became someone I didn't recognize, but I don't think she meant to. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she needed to be wanted by someone new to feel alive again. But whatever her reasons, I refuse to carry her choices on my back anymore. The truth is, love doesn't always die in flames. Sometimes it dies in silence. In sighs. In text messages turned secret. In the space between two people in the same bed. It took me losing her to remember myself. And now? Now I'm building something better. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. Just out of truth. I choose peace over performance. I choose quiet that doesn't hurt. I choose me. That's how it ends. Or maybe, how it begins.